Hey there, welcome back to Farmcraft. So I've been having a blast working on my Johnson in front of you guys. The last video we did some compression checking and some interesting things came out of that. Some comments, things I hadn't considered. One thing is, I forgot when I was explaining the length of this hose, this has a check valve on it. So basically the piston pushes air or whatever into this hose and then it can't get back out. So it doesn't matter how long this hose is. If the hose is really long and the airspace in here is really large, you're going to need to spin over several times, but you're basically turning your engine into an air compressor and it's pushing that air into this, which becomes your pressure tank. And once it hits the peak pressure, it's going to hit the peak pressure. It'll just take longer if this hose is too big. It really should not affect the level of compression you get because of this check valve. Now, some other people said, maybe your compression tester is wrong. And, you know, that's a fair thing to consider when you buy really cheap ones of these, which this one's not. This one's, you know, decent. It's not great. But when you buy cheap ones, you always got to wonder, is my testing equipment accurate? And several people were saying that there's no way it's getting accurate results. So I've got a way, we're going to test that. So I've taken the spark plug out of my steel chainsaw here. You know, this is another two-stroke. This is a modern two-stroke engine. And I would expect something around 150 PSI on this. I haven't checked the specs, so, you know, I might be wrong on that, but I would expect this to be significantly higher. Yeah, let's crank this thing over and see what we get. All right, so first pull, I'm at 64. Now remember, it just compressed this, but now it's trapped in there. So another pull, it should go higher. Yeah, now we're at 96. Almost 130. Yeah, I'm at like 188. So you can see the compression tester is working fine. It's just this engine is low compression. Marvel Mystery Oil. The original. The best money I ever spent. Rob in Illinois. That includes the money he paid for the birth of his child. Improves compression. We're going to test that. Lubricates upper cylinder for smoother idling. Keeps engine clean from sludge. Since 1923, we've kept the unique formula of Marvel Mystery Oil a secret, but the results are legendary. Well, let's see. So here's the plan. We're going to tip this guy back. I've got both plugs out. And we are going to put a healthy amount in each cylinder. Both pistons are covered. I'm going to let it sit like that. I'm actually going out of town for a few days. So when I come back, we will fill it back up. So it's been 3 days and both of these were pretty much full. This one has drained down. I can now see the dry top of that piston. This other one, which is the bottom one once the engine's upright, is still full. It has not drained at all. So I'm going to fill this one back up and we will continue the experiment. Right, so I just tipped this back up right. These sat for a week like this. I moved it occasionally just to get the pistons to different places so that they would be able to hold the oil. They needed to be relatively close to the top or the oil would leak down pretty quickly. I'm not sure if the ports are really that high or if maybe there's a scratch in the bore that's allowing that stuff to leak out. But we're going to compression test it again here after the Marvel Mystery Oil. But first I want to pump out whatever oil is in the cylinders and also in the crankcase. Yeah, it's shooting some out. So we are ready for a compression test. I've got the cordless drill and let's do it on low first. So this is the one we were getting 66 before. Almost 70. All right. Let's go on high. That's 80. You see that? That's 80. Let's check the other cylinder. I'm going to go back to low, see what we get. 76. check that out. All right, let's go to high. I'll let the pressure back out. Just shy of 90. Yeah, before I get too ahead of myself, this might not be a fair test, because this essentially is a wet test. That's where you put some oil into the cylinders, a fair amount of oil, and now the pistons have the aid of that oil to help them seal against the walls. So you might get better compression just because that oil that I've been, the Marvel Mystery Oil is in there. The way I'm going to get an answer, it's actually nighttime and raining right now. I'm going to run this thing tomorrow, get it up to temperature, give these rings some time to loosen up and do whatever it is that they're going to do. Then at that point, obviously, it won't be a wet test anymore. And then I'll recheck the compression, and then we'll know. Did the Marvel Mystery Oil work? All right, so I just ran it. Plenty of time. It's nice and warm. The rings have had a chance to work themselves out. And there's certainly no Marvel Mystery Oil left in there. So, let's see what we get. Lower cylinder, drill is on low. Everything's the same. This was 66 previously. See what we get. 64. That sucks. Nah, there's 66. So let's go to high. 75. I think that's about what it was before. Yeah, okay. This is telling me something. What's it telling you? 66. 66. And let's go to high. 76. So I got excited there for a minute, but I have to say, at least in this engine, the Marvel Mystery Oil did not increase my compression. So what did this tell me? Actually, it told me something pretty interesting. Basically, I did a good wet test on it, and it increased my compression significantly having that oil in the cylinder. That helped the rings seal against the cylinder walls. What that means is my rings are worn out, or the bore is scratched. The seal between the bore and the rings needs to be improved. That's what that means. When I was just running this thing is not running that great, and I think increasing my compression is going to make this thing run better. It took a lot longer than I was hoping, but I wanted to try this before I tear into this thing. Engine Tuner removes deposits, cleans combustion chambers. Recommended to maintain full power and efficiency in outboard motors, marine engines, power tools, snowmobiles, blah, blah, blah. Pappy from the Keys recommended that I try it. This is Evinrude Engine Tuner, and basically this is a solvent that is supposed to dissolve carbon deposits and free my rings if they're stuck. Again, same idea I was trying to do with the Marvel Mystery Oil, but it didn't work. I can't say that well, Marvel Mystery Oil. The idea with this is you start the engine, you spray this into the intake, not enough to stall it out, but you'll hear it run rougher. And this is then getting pulled through the crankcase and through the cylinders, and you run it like that for a while. I'll probably do about half the can because this is a small engine. Once it's run for a while like that, I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to take the plugs out. I'm going to spray some of this in the top of the cylinders and set it back. And we'll let that sit overnight and then run it tomorrow to clear it all out and then recheck the compression. Treatment is recommended every 50 hours or at least once a year. Well, given I've never used this before ever, apparently I have not been following their advice. Let's see if it works. Before I start, I just want to point out, you're going to see water coming out of there. Several people have said that looks like an exhaust leak. I thought the same thing when I first saw it, but there are actually 2 holes drilled in the stem here. They look like they were drilled from the factory. I don't know if it's to keep this joint clean or why they did that, but that's not a leaking seal. I'm spraying right into the intake of the car. thawed it out there at the end with that, so there's a good amount in there. So now I'm going to bring it back in the shop and we'll put some in the pistons. Alright, I'm getting it so that both pistons are as high together as I can get them. I can tip that back. We're going to let that sit overnight and we'll run it again tomorrow and then recheck the compression. What do you think? Is it going to work? Alright, it is the next day. Let me evacuate the cylinders. And I'll put the plugs back in and we'll go run it in the bucket. Honestly, I was thinking I was just going to go run it and do it off camera. But, you know, just in case it runs differently or something changes, I'll bring you guys along. We'll see what we see. Nothing. That's a lot of smoke. Between the mystery oil and this stuff, the water has definitely accumulated a lot of sludge. Alright, moment of truth. Did this do anything? 74. Pretty much exactly what I got last time. And not as good as I got when I did the wet test. 76. So yeah, no change. Alright, that settles it. I'm going to pull the head off and we're going to see what we can do to rebuild this power head. So here we are at the end of the video. Keep your Johnson in a vise. See you on the next one. I want to point out that both of these products might be just fine. The thing is you need a certain scenario where these are going to work. If your rings are stuck and there's carbon deposits and you need to break them free to increase your compression, then these are probably going to help you. What I've demonstrated, they don't work on this engine because that's not the problem with this engine. So the fact that they didn't work, I don't think necessarily means the products are no good. They just didn't work in this case. I, for one, think Marvel Mystery Oil might have such a huge following because it has like spearmint oil in it or something. Have you smelled this stuff? It smells really good.